It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by the Riverview Hospital in Wisconsin Rapids and Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of the Morning Magazine on AM 1320, as well as on the web at WFHR.com. It's time for our monthly report from Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml, who joins us in the studio today. And for those of you listening on the radio, this is a pre-recorded program because Lance, we're going to be talking about why he's going to be out of the studio actually on Wednesday. And some of you will notice a little different look to the studio because also here are our good friends from River Cities Media who are videotaping our discussion. But with that, we welcome Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Carl. Thanks for having me today.
Okay, let's talk about something that quite honestly kind of surprised me, that when I saw the controversy that ensued, a space study panel and space study needs and what have you. To me, that makes sense. It seems like something people in your position or should do on a regular basis. Business do it.
Yeah, Carl, obviously planning makes sense. I think what concerned some people immediately was maybe the title. Instantly architect got assigned as part of the name of the company or part of the discussion. And, we were not at the point where we were drawing plans to build anything. What we were doing is bringing in some structural engineers to find out long-term if there's viability to either add on to the courthouse or to other facilities we own. What would be the least expensive way to do that as we move leases in from places that are off-site? We have a number of off-site facilities. Are we better off consolidating those in one space? Are we better off building something? But this was not a draw plans. We're building something. This was a long-range look at, hey, is the building straight enough? Is it too tall, too small? Is it have the structural integrity to go up, down, left, right? That kind of thing. So all in all, you need to plan, and you need to plan ahead. And in government, you tend to look at time frames more of 10-plus years than, what do we need tomorrow?
Okay. Well, and when you're dealing with an historic building like the Wood County Courthouse here in Wisconsin Rapids, you need to look at it. Okay, what's the status of this building? What kind of shape is it in? If we have special needs, if we want to move, like you mentioned, you have some off-campus stuff where you're leasing space, there's a cost involved. You need to know, well, if we wanted to do some kind of remodeling, can it be done?
Absolutely, and that's the thought. And while we're on that, I'm going to change seats if you're watching this on air, only because this one keeps going down.
Okay, I'll let you. Lance got the ghost chair. I don't know what it is. I think we have a ghost in this building who likes to fool around with that chair. There we go. Oh, you're much better.
It's tough when we're filming, but when you're only like 5'7", to begin with, and your chair goes down, you've got an even bigger problem.
Okay.
I couldn't reach the table anymore, Carl. I couldn't see my phone. We do. We lease space. Marshfield City Hall, those leases are coming due, but those were 20-year leases, real long-term. We had people over at the annex across the street from the courthouse, and that space is no longer occupiable just due to some functional obsolescence. We have space out on 12th Street. We have satellite offices in a lot of places, and what we're trying to do is combine those for efficiencies, especially in the personnel end. A number of years ago, we combined our unified services and our social service department into one human services department. They were located in different places. And sometimes it makes a lot more sense to have, Susie sitting next to Bobby, instead of in buildings 7 or 8 miles apart. So, we're looking at those efficiencies, how to be the most effective and how to continue. We're constantly looking at how can we provide the best service at the least cost to the taxpayer.
Okay. And I guess what will happen now? This architect you brought in, the study you're going to be doing, what are you looking for from them in terms of a document or some options, a plan of?
At this point, all we're looking at are what those options might be and what might be included in a request for proposal.
Okay.
What we're trying to define, even at this point, as early as we are in the stages, what it is we really should be looking at.
Okay.
And then at that point, we would probably put that out to a couple of people and say, what would the cost be to provide that. And originally the executive committee, which was the former finance committee, approved spending up to $60,000 for those engineering studies. $60,000 is a lot of money, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to the millions or tens of millions of dollars that are spent during construction. And, I'll go back to, I've said it over and over and over, but, your tax rate in this county has gone down for 17 consecutive years, and the total levy has gone down over that time. We have not had growth. It's easy to say the tax rate hasn't gone up much or hasn't gone up at all, but you've had tremendous growth. And those of you who live here in Wood County know that we haven't had growth over the last probably 8 to 10 years. So we've done a pretty remarkable job, and part of that is planning ahead. So this would be one of those steps.
So how long do you think this initial process will take?
I would venture a guess probably from start to finish somewhere between 6 and 12 months.
Okay. But this is just the beginning of what will be a very long process.
The very early part of this. Yeah, we did a space needs assessment about, it's probably been about a year now since we started that process to look at what we actually need. And now we've put in place a committee to look at the implementation of that. For instance, we knew people were leaving the City Hall at Marshfield. We knew we needed X number of square feet to house them. The next question is where, how, what do they need? Communication infrastructure today is so vital and important. Go back 15, 20 years ago, we weren't thinking about internet or cell phone capabilities, broadband, microwave. It has changed so much.
It's all digital, too. And that's not cheap equipment.
No, the infrastructure, the capital investment is huge. And that's why I look at typically any dollars spent on planning are dollars well spent.
Okay. If you're just joining us on the Morning Magazine today, welcome. We're getting our monthly update from Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml. And also joining us and videotaping our segment is River Cities Media. So you can catch this segment on their website or just check your local cable listing. Since we're talking about space studies, we know that the work has begun over at the Edgewater Haven in Port Edwards in terms of the remodeling and reconfiguring. How is that going so far?
Pretty much done there for the most part. There's some finishing touches going on. There's some work on parking lots, those type of things. But generally speaking, we're pretty much done there. And the thought there, again, is we had a facility that much of it had been dated over time. Some of it could not be updated over time just due to, like I said, the functional obsolescence, old construction techniques. But the long-term thought there was, how do we provide better service to those citizens and those families who need it? And then how do we have the facilities available that allow us to bill those other government agencies for those services we provide, through PT and some of those other services. So, we have continued the updates there. We as a county have made a commitment to the people of our county to provide that service at Edgewater Haven. It is something that tax levy is assigned to. We spend somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million a year to provide that service. But one of the things we heard from the constituents was that they want care for those family members close to home. They don't want to have to relocate them or have those families relocate to care for those loved ones. So although it's a significant amount of money, it's a significant amount that the county board as a whole over time has felt is well worth spending.
Okay. Frack sand mining. You and I haven't talked about this in a while, but across the wire came this story out of Madison where it said local governments would lose much of their authority to regulate frack sand mines under a bill proposed by State Senate Republican Tom Tiffany of Hazelhurst, who says mining companies are being hampered by a patchwork of restrictive local ordinances, and it would be easier for the mining firms to deal with uniform rules administered by Madison.
Yeah, it's always easier when it's administered by Madison, isn't it? Washington just simplifies the whole process. Carl, I had the opportunity to chair the Wisconsin Counties Association Frack Sand Task Force. I was going to say Task Sand Frack, but the Frack Sand Task Force. We did a lot of things there, and we put together a great working document to stop counties, in effect, from just issuing broad moratoria on mining. And we put together a best practices manual that would lead them through the process. The frustration, I think, for the state legislature and Senator Tiffany on this one was the patchwork that is out there, the fact that some towns, municipalities, counties have just said no without really looking at what would probably be best for all of the citizens, and they thought they could thwart that local control. The problem is, as soon as that was introduced, lights were flashing, sirens were going off. I was getting phone calls from all over. There were emails from highway commissioners, other legislators asking me what I thought of this. And my personal opinion is it's terrible legislation. The last thing we ever want to lose is local control. I do agree, though, that rules should be somewhat consistent. Businesses, when they come in and want to establish in an area, look for consistency and regulation. So that should be expected and understandable. But across our state, based on a lot of things, the general topography of the land, the geology sometimes located there, a statewide rule isn't always applicable across that broad spectrum. So you really need to have some local control. I mean, we have very hilly countryside out in the western part of the state, northwestern part of the state. We're very flat here. Road bases are different. Road construction standards are different. There's a lot of things that we need to look at. Tomorrow, and the reason I won't be in the studio tomorrow, is there was a conference called right away, and I am one of the people meeting with the drafters of that bill in Madison to sit down and talk about how we could make that much more palatable to local units of government. I'm hoping we can thwart those efforts. My concern always is, and this has always been the case, if the state gets involved, they realize there are impacts, they then decide to tax, those dollars go into GPR type funds, and then they get reallocated to the population bases. And with frack sand mining, that does not tend to occur where those population strongholds are. And it's pretty easy. People always say, well, why was the money allocated in Milwaukee or Madison? It's pretty simple. They have a lot more votes in the state legislature than the Wisconsin Rapids or Marshfield area has up here, or Chippewa Falls, or any of those other Northwest communities. So my biggest fear is that they decide to have statewide control, that they then take any of those revenues derived from that, send it down to Madison, and then redistribute it back to us at a fraction of what we need to make our infrastructure whole. So to sum it up, we're going to Madison, we're meeting with the people who have sponsored that bill, and we're going to try to get some resolution far from what is called for in at least the initial draft.
Okay, because the Frack Sand, one of the Frack Sand companies sent an email saying it was actually the Wisconsin Industrial Sand Association. Regulatory certainty, which is an act, maintains strict and yet fair and consistent regulation of non-metallic mining in Wisconsin. So obviously that's been getting frustration. They're getting frustrated as well.
Yeah, the frustration, I think, comes from the overreach part. I think we put together a real sound set of principles and guidelines, but then you have people on both extremes, that work that and cause some of those problems. WISA, the Wisconsin Industrial Sand Association, has been a great group to work with. They sat at the table through the whole process with the task force, had tremendous amount of input. We tried to get consistent regulation that they were in favor of in many cases, and they tend to be the good guys. They're the ones that have typically mined for many, many years, sometimes generations. They understand that there's need for regulation. Again, they just don't want overreach. The problem is with any industry, there's those good actors and bad actors, and you try to legislate enough so the bad actors can't, to put it very simply, just ruin things, whether it's quality of life, environment, or whatever.
Or spoil it for everybody.
Spoil it for everybody. The good guys tend to abide by those rules. They've put a lot of them in place because they realize it is not a mining boom or a short-term money-making opportunity. A lot of these companies have been in business over 100 years, and they've been a pleasure to work with. So I understand their pushback when somebody says, we as a county are going to have a moratorium on frack sand mining, period. And one of the things we recommended against was don't do that. You can have a short-term period of time, very short-lived moratorium on while we look at something, but it just can't be, that's our answer, go away. So I understand it, and I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation down there, and it's going to be very interesting.
Any feeling about the fact that they're meeting with you has to make you feel hopeful that the senator and the folks are, okay, talk to us about your concerns about this legislation. That has to give you some signs of hope.
Well, I really believe when the Wisconsin Counties Association as a whole weighs in, plus the various counties, and then you had a highway commissioners meetings this week, and I saw several emails, either directly to me or by copy, with their concerns. Everybody's goal, whether you were sent to Washington or Madison or you're a local elected official, is at the end of the day have everything a little better than the day you got there. And I don't think anybody's trying to ruin anything, but there's different ways to approach that. And usually I find that if you step back, you listen to both sides, you tend to craft a pretty good solution. And this, I think, was an immediate reaction to the overreach by some of those communities.
I should mention, too, the Wisconsin Towns Association, when it first heard the bill, said it would affect local road usage agreements, such as the ones you came up with in Wood County for frack sand trucks, which seek to minimize highway damage. And Senate Republican Terry Moulton of Chippewa Falls said any state bill would have to address local road agreements. So...
Yeah, and you don't want to be it's a bill that I think we could probably work around in Wood County, but there's a bigger picture issue here. Mm-hmm. We are part of the energy play. And this country needs energy, and frack sand is important in that exploration. So, we have to have responsible ways to provide that if people like buying gas for less than $5 a gallon. Mm-hmm. So, it's something that's going to happen, and it's how do we do it responsibly. Like I said, the Towns Association, the frack sand producers, at least the WISA members, attorneys, the DNR, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, everybody sat at the table while we worked through these issues. But then when you get an overreach, there's a pushback. Mm-hmm. And I understand all the time that business is going to push back as hard as they can. I would expect no less of any business that I own stock in. And so I understand it. It's just sitting down at the table and trying to negotiate.
Okay. Speaking of negotiating, I don't know, but we had the governor and lieutenant governor both in town. I saw you at the event over at Mid-State Technical College for the heavy metal bus tour. First off, that's a cool way to show the leadership of our state what we have going here in terms of business partnerships with our technical college system. First off, your reaction.
First of all, a great event. Second of all, the heavy metal bus tour in itself is a real good way to let those young people out there who don't want to do a 4-year college track understand and realize that there are some great careers out there, some very highly paid careers also, that don't necessarily require a 4-year degree, at one of our great universities, but through our tech schools. And I really want to applaud, especially Mid-State Tech here, for their ability to quickly develop programs to meet those needs that are identified by our local manufacturers. They have done a tremendous job of taking care of those needs when addressed or when pointed out. And we develop programs very quickly. If you want to develop a new program at the university system, it's going to take forever, maybe a generation. If we have a need that's identified in our community, the tech schools usually within a year can put that program out there, provide those people to those industries and react. And one of the things I heard there, and Carl, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard that the average manufacturing wage in the state was about $52,000 a year.
Something like that.
And the average wage in the state is about $42,000 a year, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, there are a lot of young people out there. There's a lot of people looking at changing careers that think there's only one direction you can go, and there isn't. But today's world of manufacturing is a very high-skilled, highly technical, capital-intensive kind of operation. And you just don't walk in off the street and say, I'm going to run the machine. So our tech schools, Mid-State Tech here under the direction of Dr. Bujak, have done a sensational job, and I'm sure they will continue to do so. And it was recognized, obviously. You don't often get the governor and the lieutenant governor and a couple of secretaries, plus a number, a state senator, state representative, and a few others in the room at the same time.
Yeah, and the governor, even in his message, his weekly radio message, mentioned it again, as this is an example of something he'd like to see happen around the state. And in the news conference, I asked him the first question, his reaction, and he basically said this is the kind of this heavy metal bus tour, this type of collaboration between business, students, and industry to assess needs and quickly address them is what I would like to see statewide. And he praised Midstate in this area for doing it.
We have tens of thousands of high-tech jobs available in manufacturing every week, available on JobNet, and we don't have trained people to fill those jobs. So, we have an unemployment rate of somewhere between 7 and 8%, and yet we have tens of thousands of jobs available out there for people that are trained, and this is one of the ways we can get that done.
Okay, and hopefully if nothing else, the governor's visit maybe will help attract other companies to our area who realize, hold it, they got a nice little partnership going there in Wood County.
Yeah.
And let's check out Wood County and see what they got going there. There might be some locations that I'm sure you and local officials would be more than happy to show.
The only way, we survive long term and grow our economy is business development. And it's not going to be some 5,000 employee auto plant opening in the area. It's going to be a small manufacturer who comes up with a process, who slowly hires a number of employees over time, a lot of diversity in the industries. That's the way communities become successful.
Let's talk quickly before I let you go, and that is the budget. Is that getting to be that time of year again? And we're not talking about deer hunting. Give us, I guess, a broad brush view of the process Wood County will be going through.
Process started back in about July, got pretty intense through August, really ramps up in September where we start to finalize those. The budget will be published, if it wasn't, it was probably this week actually. And then we have the final budget hearing on November 12th. I believe that's a Tuesday at 9 o'clock prior to the county board meeting, at which time we adopt it. And as I said before, our county tax rate, again, will remain level. We have no increase in spending. We have either maintained and or lowered it every year for the past 16 or 17 years. It's a good budget. It allows us to do the things that are at the core of government, what we should do. And one of the conversations I had very quickly with the governor when he was in town the other day was, we have been responsible, but we need the ability to reserve unused tax levies should the need ever arise. And a very quick example is, if I need to build something next year, I would like to know that I have the ability to use some untapped levy to do that. Because as I lower, let me rephrase it. I say I when I'm in the studio because you and I are talking.
You're right.
As our county board, as our department heads, as a team, as we have looked at this and lowered our tax rate, it can't go to zero. But every year, if you base zero increase on the lower number the year before, it's headed that direction. And when we've been responsible for as many years as we have, we should have the ability, should a need arise, an emergency communication tower might be a great one.
Or severe storm damage or something.
Yeah, we should have the ability the next year to increase that levy slightly if we need to. We haven't taken advantage of what could have been maybe a 20, 30, 40% increase in tax rates over those years when opportunity arose. We haven't done that. Money left in your pockets out there is the best place for it, and that has been the decision of our board. That's not an executive committee decision. That's not a Lance decision. That's something that the board has decided on year in, year out, and they've done a really good job.
Okay. And what was the governor's response when you brought that up?
I think it's something that they, I kind of get we've looked at that, and we realize that, and the governor came from county government.
Okay.
So he has a real good understanding of how that works. And I think he realized as well as anybody. In fact, I was going to laugh when you said, hey, budget? I say, why do we need one? The federal government hasn't had one for, 6, 7 years?
I know.
We kind of need a budget. We have one. We adhere by it. We do not overspend it. We can't print money.
Right.
I don't want to, but we can't. So it's pretty simple.
You can't go raise a debt ceiling and go, okay, we can go crank her up, boys.
You're right. And all we want to do is have the ability to serve those residents of Wood County in the best way we can. And I think we have shown responsibility. And as I look at other taxing entities, I've seen that they've kind of thought about that too as I look at the tax rates coming out for this year.
Big picture, looking forward in your budget, are there some areas of concern in terms of expenses that we started our segment today with, talking about space needs and the like. But is there something closer down?
Space needs a little bit, Carl. But the one that always bothers me is, county government is an administrative wing of state government or administrative function of state government, not wings, function. Okay. Arm would have been a better word than wing. Wing sounds like I've got an architect and I'm building something. So a lot of money's passed through, but Medicaid reimbursement rates are huge. We tend to get money after we set budgets, and we never know what that is going to be. State aid is set in 2-year biennium. We don't always know what those are going to be. But the big one right now, that 10,000-pound gorilla in the room, so to speak, health care. Where are we going with national health care? What's it going to cost the counties? How is it going to impact the residents in our area? I wouldn't say that we just don't know. Nobody knows. And that's not good planning.
No, it is. Well, good luck down in Madison trying to talk some common sense into our lawmakers, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Carl.
Take care. Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml wrapping up part 1 of today's edition of The Morning Magazine. The Morning Magazine, as always, is brought to you by Riverview Medical Center. With you, it's personal and Comfort Air.